Welcome back to I Now Pronounce You Divorce. Today, we're very excited to have a guest who's going to talk about something that I think it's not overlooked so much when you're going through divorce, but unfortunately, we see it get pushed to the back burner at a time when things are most stressful for people. So, when you're going through divorce, everything in your life is tumultuous. You're going through things, and some people unfortunately will turn to substances and other activities to dull that pain at a time when they probably shouldn't. So, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what you're going to talk about today.
My name is Machion Garrison, and I am a therapist. Um, and I have a master's in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University. I'm also an addiction counselor, and I'm also an ordained minister, so I kind of cover the gamut. I've been doing this kind of passionate work
Mhm.
since 1998, and it is because of my own journey through addiction.
Mhm.
So I'm very happy to be here, and I think the topic is so relevant, um, much more relevant than we would imagine it would be. It's extremely important because it covers a lot of the spectrum
Mhm.
that needs to be said.
Mhm. And where we see it the most and what we do is, when we're dealing with one party or another, we'll find that somebody starts drinking more, or there'll be allegations of somebody starting to drinking more. But, from a psychological perspective, it's a little bit more than just picking up a beer and having a beer, right? It's a little bit more than that. So, how would you define addiction beyond the physical dependency?
Well, addiction is best defined in that first step of the 12 steps, which
Mhm.
says, I admit that I'm powerless over my addiction and that my life has become unmanageable. So, the psychological part of that is we believe that we have to habitually do something in order to feel normal and function, when really it's the opposite.
Mhm. And addiction kind of comes in all shapes and forms. I said, you think about the person drinking too much. I had a client that wouldn't stop working out. He literally started spending 8 and 9 hours a day into the gym and ended up in the hospital and getting fired from work because he wasn't doing his job because he found something else. So, what are the needs that it kind of fills, right? We look at addiction, it's going to fill something or we wouldn't do it.
Right. Um, what we always have to look at, especially in these days and times when mental health care is really jettisoning, it's a positive trajectory. So we have to think about what are the reasons that people are the way they are, because no one comes out of the womb thinking they need a substance or something else to distract them from the truth.
Mhm.
Um, I always use the illustration that just every addict that I help can latch on to. It's like, okay, when you take the first drink in your life, and it may be peer pressure, it may be just your environment, and you take it and it feels great. It's like, oh my God, what is this? I never felt this way before. And okay, you may be able to socially do that. Here's where the problem comes in. When you say, oh, Jesus Christ, I had a hard day at work. Let me go ahead and pour a drink and make myself feel better. I'm going to go ahead and relax. See, that's when it becomes a solution and not recreation. It's not social, it's your answer. So go ahead.
I was going to say that's probably where I've seen it is where people say, "Oh no," like you get out of a stressful court situation, like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" And I'm gonna go have a drink. You're like, maybe you should just go walk on the treadmill, right? Do something else.
Yeah, I mean, we could reframe that, but that's where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in. We try to help people reframe the negative thoughts to make them positive. And that takes a while,
Mhm.
So you're right. If you could just replace that thought, it would be good.
Mhm. And that's where willpower comes in, right? I think a lot of people mistake addiction to a lack of willpower and say, if you just buckled down, you would get over this. How helpful is that line of thought?
It's not helpful at all. Willpower is temporary at best.
Mhm.
In the rooms of AA and NA, Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, we have a saying that says, fake it till you make it. Well, that's just to make sure that you consistently attend the meetings. But once you get your sponsorship and you go through the steps, then people start to understand, okay, here's the order of how recovery changes a person's life. So willpower doesn't work because psychologically, your body's still saying, hey, where's that stuff? Or, hey, where's that thing? I need that thing. And if you look at it like the metaphor I use is when you start in your addiction and it's ongoing and consistent, you build like a warehouse in your mind, a big warehouse that you can keep everything that activates your dopamine, the marijuana, the stimulants, alcohol, and it all goes into this warehouse. And there's one man in the warehouse, and that's the addicted you. And so when you come into recovery, you fire that guy. You fire the guy. But here's the thing, the warehouse is still there. So you can't just disassemble the warehouse. You have to completely destroy the warehouse in your mind, demolish it, and take it out piece by piece. And every time you take out a piece, you reconcile the reason. And there's always a reason, and it probably stems from an early childhood trauma of some kind or a parenting style that just wasn't healthy 100%.
And I like how you talked about the addicted self, right? So often you go in to fix something, and you're still being that same person. So how much does addiction really control somebody's sense of identity and their self-worth?
Well, let's just think about the damage that addicts do in their act of addiction to the people in their environment. I mean, their family, their friends, their coworkers, religious affiliates. We don't hurt people. Addicts, I'm talking about. We devastate their lives. So when we come in, we have to stand right in front of the mirror and say, "Hey, I did this and I did that and I did this," and that brings on a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. So that just drives a person's self-esteem down to the floor. Without the self-esteem, they'll try to emotionally regulate themselves in ways that feel like survival. They'll avoid things, they'll isolate, they'll overdo things, overthink things. They'll just compelled to apologize all the time. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or they're always defensive, you know, because when addicts go around people after entering recovery, the loved ones and the friends still see that they're expecting to see the addict. They're not looking for the new person. They don't see that this pickle is now a cucumber again. They only see the pickle, you know? So it's hard to overcome that.
Yeah, and I've been around people that are at different points in that process. Right? I knew somebody that over imbibed, and we went to do something, and I was playing golf, and I grabbed a beer, and I was like, "Ah, crap, my bad. I'll put that back." And he's like, "No, no, no. Yeah, I'm fine." So for him, he had to change a lot before he could put himself back into that situation. But what other identity shifts are necessary for lasting recovery that actually means something?
Well, that's directly tied to shame and guilt. The difference between shame and guilt. Guilt is something that you've done and you can correct it. Shame is what you identify yourself with because of having done that thing. So you have to forgive yourself. That's one of the shifts that you have to have compassion for yourself, forgive yourself, understand that what you went through. Once you dig and find the reasons, you can understand that, hey, this is not your fault. It's not your fault. You responded to things that happened in your environment and didn't know that it was unhealthy until it was too late. So that you have to have an identity shift in that way. Your self-esteem has to rise. You have to be confident about the decisions that you make. The only way that that's going to happen consistently is if you implement a good, strong, constant support network, starting with your sponsor. And I just wrote a book about having a support network that's intentional, because everything hinges on who's advising you, who's in your corner, who are you talking to? Because the urges are going to hit, the triggers are going to come. And if you don't have the presence of mind to already have a plan in place, which we call a relapse prevention plan, then you will fall prey to addiction. It's not an if, it's a when.
You brought up the intentional support. And intentional is something I think that a lot of us, when we do something day to day, forget the intention, right? Because you get
Yes.
so used to, like, I'm getting dressed, not getting dressed with intention. I'm driving to work, but there's a difference. So can you kind of explain what intentional support is?
Yeah. Intentional support is support that you have decided will help you become successful in your personal life and your recovery and your career. So, say for instance, the most important part of an intentional support network is first you have to get rid of the people who are not on your side and they may not even know it. So, in my book, I say, hey, here's what you have to do. You have to fire the people from sitting at your table. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. That just means you don't ask them for advice or they're not mentoring you because it's not helping. You know, auntie who's been on your side forever, she's not doing anything and she's just saying, "Well, honey, maybe one day you'll get better. Well, I'll just pray for you." That's not helping. So you need intentional people. You need a therapist, you need a life coach, you need a mentor who is financially expert. You need a coach like a physical coach. So these people are intentional. And the last one on that list is a trusted family member or friend, because that's who calls you out on your crap. You know, so being intentional means I am doing this on purpose, and these people are only coming together because I need them and they're looking out for my success.
And like you said, you have to find somebody that cares enough to call you out and doesn't care
Indeed.
enough to, you know, grab you another beer when it's a bad day. Uh,
Yeah. And
so,
you can't have yes people around. It's like, well, if just hang in there, it'll be okay tomorrow. No, I need help. I need a path. I need a plan. With no plan, there's no progress.
mhm. Yeah, I talked to somebody one time and they sat down and figured out how much money they spent on their addiction and realized that they could put a pool in for their family in 5 years if they stopped. And so he went and he got something. It was a computer thing that just tracked it, his spending. And he said that helped him because in 5 years he was able to afford a pool. I was like, that was a lot of habit. Uh,
Well, I'll
but
tell you this. Um, I've been uh I've been clean from crack cocaine since June 13th, 1995.
Mhm.
Um, so I can honestly say that it is a process. It's a 3-year process. The first year is almost completely physical recovery. The second year is almost completely psychological, and the third is almost completely spiritual. But now you do have elements of all of that in all of those 3 years, but the biggest impact is in that order.
I can't even imagine. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it is something, right? I mean, you see so many people, and you brought it up earlier, they devastate everybody around them to pursue their addiction. And how does that? I mean, when you talk about devastating, I mean, you talk about relationships in your life, I mean, romantic relationships. How does it affect trust and emotional attachment in the relationships you have?
Um, the trust is destroyed because addicts want to do better. They may try to stop but can't. They make promises that we can't keep. And we really do think that we can when we make the promises. Or the shame and guilt has us saying something we can just pacify the moment and think, okay, I'll come back on the back end and make what I said true. But the back end comes up faster than the fix. You know, the truth always comes out, usually at the worst time and in the worst way. You know, I try to guide people away from saying good and bad. It's either positive or negative. It's either true or not true. It's either honest or not honest. You know, so in a marriage, when the marriage is when that trust is violated, it it's like wiping out the entire foundation of the relationship, and you're just falling or you're just floating in limbo, and the person who is the addict's partner has no clue whose fault it is. So they're trying to say, okay, well, did I do this or did I miss something? Well, have they been this way the whole time? And the trust is completely gone. The marriage starts to disintegrate. Forgiveness comes right away because they love each other. I forgive you, yes, but it's going to take a long time to build the trust. And if a couple can successfully, maneuver through that, then they'll be even stronger. But sometimes it's too much damage. And depending on what the partner who does not have the addiction, depending on what the trauma in their life is, they may or may not be able to come back from that. And so divorce is a healthy thing.
Thank you for joining us this week on I Now Pronounce You Divorced. Please join us next week for part 2.